Welcome back to the Human Physiology Revision series. In this video, we will cover the topics of human nervous system, structure of nerve cells and conduction of nerve impulses. Starting from the first pair of NCERT, it mentions some basic definitions of coordination and explains how neural system is different from endocrine system in providing coordination. For example, neural system is different from endocrine system as it uses neurotransmitter as opposed to hormones which are used by the endocrine system. It is quicker than endocrine system and it provides point-to-point connection. Next, this is very basic. As you know, the structure of a nerve cell has a cell body. There are these branch-like structures arising from the cell body. They are called dendrites. It has a nucleus and there is an axon which runs away from cell body and ends at axon terminal. There are Schwann cells present in axon which makes myelin sheath in myelinated nerve cells. The gap between these myelin sheaths are called nodes of Ranvier. So these neurons are divided based on the number of dendrites. First there is multipolar neurons which have two or more dendrites. They are present in cerebral cortex of the brain. Next, bipolar which have one dendrite. So there is one dendrite, cell body and an axon. These are present in the retina of eye. When we will study the structure of eye, this will come up again. Next, there is unipolar. Now the name can be misleading, but it is unipolar and has zero dendrite. It has a cell body and an axon. This is present in embryonic stage. Remember, bipolar does not have two dendrites. Bipolar has one dendrite and unipolar does not have one dendrite. Unipolar has zero dendrite. Next, nerve cells can also be distinguished based on the presence of myelin sheath. So there are myelinated nerve fibers which are present in cranial and spinal nerve, and non-myelinated nerve fibers are present in autonomic nervous system. We will look into this later. First of all, myelinated nerve fibers which are present in cranial and spinal nerves, these provide a faster way of communication through a process called saltations. So in saltations, the nerve impulse jumps from the axon, it jumps over the myelin sheath to the first node of Ranvier, and then it jumps from node of Ranvier to node of Ranvier, and that's why it is faster, because it is skipping parts of axon. This can only be seen in myelinated nerve fibers because node of Ranviers are only present in myelinated nerve fibers. Next, another important thing that you need to remember is that Schwann cells are actually present in both myelinated and non-myelinated nerve fibers. But Schwann cell only produce myelin sheath in myelinated nerve fibers and not in non-myelinated nerve fibers. Next, generation of nerve impulse. This topic has been given in NCERT. So first you need to remember that generation of nerve impulse is caused because of a disturbance of ions in the axonal membrane. As you can see, in a resting axon, there is high K positive charge in the ICF, which is the fluid present inside the axon, and high Na positive concentration outside the axonal membrane. This potential gradient is maintained by two things. First, there is the Na K positive active pump, which through active transport pumps 3 Na positive outside and pumps 2 K positive inside. So that's why there is a high K positive charge. Next, you have to remember that axonal membrane is permeable to certain ions but is impermeable to certain other ions. For example, the axonal membrane is permeable to Na positive ions but so for example, the axon membrane is permeable to K positive ions but highly impermeable to Na positive ions and negatively charged ions. So since it is permeable to K positive ions, the K positive ions will get in, and since it is impermeable to Na positive ions, the Na positive ions will stay out. Now, what happens when there is a stimulus applied is that there is a depolarization that occurs in this axonal membrane. What depolarization causes is that it causes membrane permeability changes, which causes the Na positive ions to pour in and K positive ions to pour out. Hence, there is a occurrence of positive charge inside the axonal membrane and a negative charge outside the axonal membrane. Later, this depolarized region is repolarized through Na positive K positive pump, but by that time the disturbance would have moved through the axonal membrane. So you can see that as this part gets repolarized, the depolarized part has already moved, and this is how the depolarized part keeps moving and getting repolarized, and this is how the nerve impulse is transmitted from an axon to another nerve. Now if you want to know more about this process in detail, you can watch my video on GHK equation and nerve conduction. I have linked it in the description. Now you can have seen how a nerve impulse flows through an axon, but how does a nerve impulse go from one nerve cell to another nerve cell? It is through the help of neurotransmitter. These are some synaptic vessels which are present in the axon terminal. When the nerve impulse reaches these synaptic vessels, it causes membrane permeability changes, and these vessels fuse with the wall of nerve endings, and it causes the nerve neurotransmitters to come out, and these neurotransmitters react with the receptors present in the postsynaptic cell, which causes membrane permeability changes in the postsynaptic cells, and hence the electric impulse has been transferred through the synapse. So you can see that this method of transfer of electrical impulse is only one of two methods. First, these synapses which use neurotransmitters are called chemical synapses, and there are another type of synapse which do not use neurotransmitters. They are called electrical synapse. So in the nerve cells which use electrical synapse, they actually have less gap between nerve cells, and this causes direct electrical current flow through the nerve cell. These are usually found in the cerebrum of the brain. The electrical nerve synapses are usually more efficient and faster than the chemical nerve synapses, but they are rarely found in the body. Whereas chemical nerve synapses are slower than electrical nerve synapses, but they are commonly found throughout the human body. You have to remember that electrical nerve synapses transmit electrical currents through gap junctions and not neurotransmitters. Moving to the human neural system, this is very basic. There are two categories of nerves present in human neural system. First is CNS, central nervous system, which is comprised of brain and spinal cord. We'll look into brain and spinal cord in the part 2 of the video. In this we will go over the basics of human neural system. So first, the brain has a protective covering of skull and meninges. There are three layers of meninges present. Dura mater, which is outer, it is hard and it is in contact with the skull. Arachnoid matter, as the word arachnoid already suggests, it is web-like. Arachna means web and noid means like, and it is present in the middle. Paya matter, paya in Greek means soft, so it is soft and it is present in contact with the brain. So the order goes skull, next dura mater, next arachnoid, next paya mater, and next brain. Next we can move over to the peripheral nervous system. So all the nerves arising from brain and spinal cord constitute the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system consists of two types of nerves, afferent and efferent nerves. You have to remember that afferent nerve take impulses from the organs and sends it to the brain, and efferent nerves takes orders from the brain and sends it to the organs. So afferent is coming towards, all the nerve signals are coming towards the brain, and afferent is going away, moving away from the brain to the body. So afferent nerves actually affect the motor nerve cells. Next, there are two types of nerve systems inside the afferent nervous system itself. These are somatic neural system and autonomic neural system. So somatic neural system control the voluntary movements. They transport impulses from the CNS to the skeletal muscles. But autonomic nervous system, they control involuntary movement. They relay impulses from CNS to smooth muscles. For example, the muscles of stomach, which are involuntary. They are controlled by autonomic neural system. And as you must have remembered, the nerve cells of autonomic neural system are non-myelinated. Next, there is another type of human neural system which is called visceral neural system. This is composed of several ganglia and plexus and nerve fibers which take signals through CNS to viscera and also vice versa. Next, we'll move over to the reflex actions and reflex arcs. This is very basic. As you already know, it is a response to the peripheral nervous system stimulation. It is done without conscious effort, that is, it is involuntary by the spinal cord. There is one specific case of reflex action that is given in NCERT, that is knee-jerk reflex. Let us see how the knee-jerk reflex works using this NCERT diagram. When a stimulus is applied below the patella in the receptor muscle, it causes a nerve impulse to flow through the afferent pathway to the dorsal root ganglion. This then relays the nerve impulse to the motor neuron, which then relays the nerve impulse to the afferent pathway and to the effector muscle. One thing that you need to keep in mind is, although the NCERT has marked interneuron over here, the interneuron doesn't take part in knee-jerk reflex. The nerve signal passes from dorsal root ganglia to the motor neuron and then the afferent pathway. So receptor, afferent neuron, CNS, afferent neuron, effector muscle. The afferent neuron transmits impulse via dorsal nerve root. Interneuron is not a part of knee-jerk reflexes. This covers the basic first part of the human neural system in NCERT. In next part, we will go over the human brain and spinal cord.